Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland, with me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Well, hello. Today we've got a really fun one in store for you because we're going to go through a list of all the questions that you should ask when you are trying to find your dream wedding venue. Now, it's going to be really practical because I'm going to walk you through the list of everything you can ask before you go and look at the venue, and then all the questions to ask when you are having your tour and you've got a venue coordinator who's showing you around the venue. So we're going to look at those two topics, and I've categorized everything as well so that you know the types of questions to ask and why you're asking them. So before we get into the list of questions, I have to tell you what's coming up next week because I am really, really excited about it. So for the whole month of December, we're going to be talking about everything that you need to do when you're preparing to get engaged. So if you are planning on popping the question, you are going to want to listen to the next 4 episodes. So we're going to cover things like how to plan the proposal. We're going to think about things like rings and all the things you got to think about. You know, do you know the difference between carat with a C and carat with a K? We're going to cover all of that. And then how to announce your engagement when it happens. But then before that, what do you say when you're going to propose? Apart from the obvious, you know, will you marry me? What else do you say? So throughout the month of December, we're going to have 4 episodes, one each week. We're going to cover everything you need to think about when you are planning on getting engaged, and you don't want to miss it. It's going to be amazing. So make sure that next week you are back for the first installment of that 4-part series. Now let's get stuck into our questions. Okay, these are the questions. It's not a whole lot of questions. The first questions, we've just got 3 questions that you want to ask before you go and look at your wedding venue. The first question is this. It's a very simple question, a very obvious one, but is what is the total cost? Now you want to be able to have a look at the fees in detail. So when you're asking for the total cost, you don't just want them to give you the figure, but you want to know the detail of the cost. What's included? Is there, are there things like staff fees? Will there be any extra costs if you stay longer than the allotted time? Is there cleaning fee or room hire fee? All of those different things. You want to ask that upfront so that you know if this venue is in your budget. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you can get around some of these things if you look at the figure and you think, oh no, they're not in my budget. But first question, what is the total cost? Question number 2. Are you available on my date? Now, this is only important if you have a date set and you're trying to find a venue that is available on that date. If your date is quite flexible, but you have your eye on a couple of different venues and you just want to know if they're available roughly in a particular time, ask when they're available in this month or when they're available from this month to this month in this year. It depends on what your priorities are, if it's your date that you want to hold on to or just the season in a particular year. Next question, what is the venue's capacity? Now, the reason that this is important is because you want to make sure that the venue that you've picked can actually accommodate the number of guests that you want to invite. So now if you've got a guest list of people, let's say, 250 guests, you want to make sure that your venue can actually hold all those people, and you don't want to end up booking a venue that can only host 150, and then you've got 100 people that you've got to try and figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to cut them out. Okay, let's go into the next set of questions. This is the bulk of the questions we're going to go through today. Is all about what you're going to ask when you're at your venue tour. So now you're walking around the venue, you've got a coordinator showing you around, and there's normally a time where you can sit down together and ask questions. Sometimes you'll feel like you can ask the questions as you're walking through the venue and you're in a different room or, you're looking at different things. But many of the questions you'll reserve and you'll sit down together and kind of go through them in list form. I've categorized these, and the first category is everything to do with the booking details. So question number 1 in this category is how long can I provisionally hold the date for? Now, some venues will allow you to hold the date for free. Others will ask for a deposit or a booking fee, and that's how you hold the date. But you need to find out what the fine print is and what your venue's protocol is so that you know if saying to them, please hold the date for us, is good enough, or if you need to take action, and then that will enable you to hold the venue. All venues have different rules. It's important to find out what your rules are. Next question, and I alluded to this one earlier, but it is, when is the final payment due? Now, the reason that we ask this is because you might see what the venue costs and think, oh no, they're outside of my budget. But the reality is, if you only need to pay your deposit by a certain date and you can pay the rest in installments, with the final payment perhaps only being due just before or even just after the big day, it might seem to feel a little bit more doable to have this dream wedding venue. So ask that question. Next one is, what is the cancellation policy? Now, if the global pandemic has taught us anything, it's that knowing the fine print is very helpful. Next question is, how many hours can we reserve the space for? Of course, when you're planning your big day, you've probably got a particular idea in your mind of when the festivities will begin and end. So find out from the venue if those festivities in your mind will overlap with the time frame that you're allowed to use the venue. And then you can ask, will my wedding be the only wedding taking place at the venue? Of course, in an ideal world, having exclusive use of the venue is what you're going to get, but not all venues offer this. So it's important to understand if you will have the venue all to yourself, and if not, what does that mean? Will there be overlaps of your wedding and somebody else's wedding? Just find out so you know what to expect. Now, the next category of questions is all about the logistics. We've got 2 questions about the logistics. The first one, it's a bit of a boring one, but it's important to know. Is there enough parking for all of our guests? And if the answer is no, you want to find out if there's an overflow car park nearby or some kind of transportation plan so that if the car park is a few minutes walk or a few minutes drive, that there's some kind of shuttle. Just want to know what your guests are going to be expecting on the day. And the second question is, what is the backup plan if it rains? Now, you may want to have your ceremony indoors, your reception indoors, but consider your photo opportunities that are usually outside. If it rains and you don't want to be outside in the rain, are there other options of perhaps indoor photo places or, some kind of, archway or somewhere that you can have your pictures done if it's really, really raining? And the venue coordinator can probably show you what these places look like so you can begin to envision yourself in the venue on your day. The next category is all about the accommodation. So you want to ask, is there accommodation nearby? And this question is only important if you are not getting married at a hotel, because of course the hotel will have accommodation already. But for any other type of venue, you want to know if in the area there is something that you can recommend to your guests so that they can stay nearby. And then the second question is there a minimum stay requirement for guests that are booking rooms? This is for hotels. You just want to make sure that you know ahead of time if your guests are staying, are they allowed to stay for only one night, or is there a minimum of, say, 2 nights that they have to book if they're staying for the wedding? Your next category is all about the ceremony. So you want to know if there is somewhere to get ready before the ceremony begins. Many hotels and venues will offer an amazing bridal suite or a room that you can use to get ready in, where you can take your pictures and you can lay out your dress and your accessories. You just want to find out if that's an option if you are planning to have your ceremony in that venue. And if not, you don't need to ask the question. And then the next question is, if you are having your ceremony and reception at the same venue, is there a changeover plan from the ceremony setup to the reception setup? Now, it's only important if you're going to have one space where these 2 events are happening, but you want to know what that is and if guests will need to be moved to a different location, what the logistics are surrounding that. And now this is a big one, food and dining. Now, if food is important to you, you want to know the following things. 1, can we arrange a food tasting beforehand? And if so, is there a cost involved? 2, now this is for everyone, what are the menu options? And do you cater for vegetarians and vegans? And you want to make sure that the vegetarians and vegans are not just getting a little salad, but they're getting something they're really, really going to love. And this is even more important if you are vegetarian or vegan. 3, do you have a food and beverage minimum? And what are the consequences if you don't meet this? 4, is the linen, crockery, and glassware included in the cost? And if not, what will they cost? And then 5, what size tables do you have and what do they look like? Now, you may have a particular picture in your mind of only having round tables, or perhaps only having long banquet style tables. Whatever it is that you're picturing, you just want to make sure that that's what the venue has available, and you want to have a look at those tables. You want to see pictures of their venue being set up in different ways so that you can see what's going to work best for what you're envisioning for your big day. Now, the next category is another fun one. It's all about the entertainment. So first question, is there space for a band or a DJ? It's a big one. If you have a priority of dancing, having a party, you want to make sure that your venue actually has space for that. And you also want to know if there's a noise limitation or a cutoff time that the band or the DJ needs to stop performing. The next question, what are the bar prices? Now, this is particularly important if you're not having an open bar and your guests will be buying their own drinks. You want to know what the prices are going to be so that you can start to factor in if this is going to be a good fit for you or not. And the final question on this topic is, what time will our festivities need to conclude? And then you want to know if that time includes the pack up time, or if you can finish the wedding and then begin to pack up after that time. Now, we've got a couple of questions that might feel a little bit boring, but you need to ask these because they're all about the facilities. And these are some of the ways that you can look after your guests ahead of time by finding out what the venue has available. So firstly, do you have disabled access? Now, this includes things like entrances, access to the toilets, and when you think of this, you want to keep your elderly guests in mind too, not only those who are disabled, because you want to just make sure that people don't have to walk up too many stairs, and that if there are stairs, that there's an alternative option to get in and out of the venue as well. Next facilities question, how many toilets are there? Now, you will need to have at least 4 toilets per 100 guests, and that's important because you don't want to have queues of people waiting to go to the loo between the speeches and during the dancing and everything. You want people to be comfortable and not waiting around for too long. The next question, will there be a safe space to store the gifts? And you also want to make sure that there's somebody who's got their eyes on the gifts throughout the course of the wedding so that they don't go missing and somebody doesn't move them around, but so that you know where they are at all times. And then, does your venue include a sound system? And if not, could you rent this equipment? Now, your DJ or your band may include all the sound equipment that's needed for every part of the day, but you just want to make sure that if your band is only coming at a certain time, and if there's a period of time where you don't have a PA system, you want to check if your venue has something available to play music in the background or to have a microphone for someone to make an announcement. It's just good to know what the options are. Now, when it comes to suppliers, you want to know if your venue has a recommended list of suppliers that you can see. I fully believe that an amazing way to find the best suppliers in the country is to pick one supplier that you really love and trust and see who they recommend. And if your wedding venue is one of the first things that you're going to book, they may have a whole list of suppliers that know the venue well, they've worked there before, they've got good chemistry, and you can get great recommendations by asking the wedding coordinator if they have any recommended suppliers. And then the second thing you want to ask, which is a really important question, which is on this topic, is if they do have a list, are you allowed to use suppliers who are not on that list? You just want to make sure if you can bring in your own supplier dream team if you've got other people in mind. Now, the final questions will be in the topic of staff. So firstly, will your staff be involved in setting up and taking down the decor? It's a big question because if they won't be involved in this, you need to find somebody who can. And if they can get involved in the decor, you want to know what capacity they're doing it in. If there's an extra charge, you want to make sure that if you've got boxes of decor with individual items that need to get set up, you just want to know someone's actually going to do that. And you don't want to assume that it will be the venue staff. And then the final question, which is a very important one, is will our point person on the day be the person that we deal with during the planning? You just want to make sure that whoever is running things for you on the day, whoever's coordinating all your festivities, is the person who's going to know everything that you would like them to know. You want to make sure that whatever vision you're communicating to your venue coordinator, that is the person who's actually going to be outworking everything and pulling all your plans together on the day. So those are the questions that you are going to ask your wedding venue. Remember the questions that you asked beforehand. I'm going to quickly remind you of those because we spoke about them earlier on. So before you look at your wedding venue, you want to ask, what is the total cost? Are you available on my date? And what is your venue's capacity? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of these questions in writing on the Weddings Online blog. It's weddingsonline.ie. So you can see all these questions in writing. You can take the list with you. You can ask all the questions when you're having your tour. And then don't forget that next week we're launching our brand new series all about getting engaged. And so if you're not yet engaged, but you're hunting for a wedding venue, don't miss that series. Well, thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.